Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our day 17 of this 100-day challenge. So let's pick up where we left off yesterday. So, this comment: no way my money funds my wife's family. Most won't work, start college but don't finish, start a business but won't open them. So let's unpack the whole answer on this one today. It's big and it's nuanced, so I'm splitting it into two parts because it goes back 400 years and I'm not going to rush it. So here's part one. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why her family is poor, like truly understand, and who exactly made it that way. And before I say a single hard word, hear me on this. What I'm going to tell you is not so much as a flaw in my people as a deep gaping wound in a system. There's a difference, and by the end, you will feel it. I told you weeks ago this episode was coming. I actually had it slotted for the main season, but the last few days led us straight here, so I am just giving it to you now. So let me give this to you in parts. Act 1: the ladder with the rungs sawed off. Let me start with someone I know very well: me. Like I mentioned yesterday, I'm a college dropout, 2 years in and then out. And the only reason I'm not still stuck in my province with nothing going for me is that right around the corner, the call center showed up and they dropped the bar. You didn't need the degree anymore. The main requirements were at least high school graduate and have a good command of the English language. So I took that as a challenge until one of them let me in. That's the whole story of how I climbed a lowered bar, a lot of practice, and the nerve to hand in my application anyway, even though I was so insecure of being an undergraduate. Now, here's what you need to understand about the ladder. In the West, if you work hard, the ladder mostly works. Get the skills, put in the hours, doors open. That's real where you're from. So when you look at her brother and then think, just get a job, just finish school, just try harder. You're not being cruel, gentlemen. You're being a Westerner. You just don't know something about the ladder here. The bottom rungs are gone. Here, without a degree and without the right connection, a lot of those doors aren't hard to open. They're bolted shut. It doesn't matter how early you get up. The currency that moves you here isn't only how good you are, it's your papers and your connection. And if you were born without either, you can be brilliant and hungry and still be standing in that exact same spot at 40 that you were at 20. So look at the ground this is happening on. Roughly 58% of this country is poor or low income, more than half. That's not a slum somewhere you'll never visit. That's the majority, and that's normal. So, is there a way out at all? Yes. One, we even have a word for it: diskarte, street smarts, the hustle. If you're born here, your one real shot usually isn't a diploma. It's starting something small with your own two hands and growing it. And the street doesn't check your diploma. I've seen it work. A few people in my own neighborhood clawed out exactly that way. Started selling fish balls on a stick on the corner, and years later they own an eatery, a little piggery, a sari-sari store. There's also this couple that got featured on a Jessica Soho TV show. They started as scavengers, years of pushing a wooden carriton through the streets, picking through garbage for scrap metal, plastic, old newspapers. And here's the part that stuck with me. Every dirty 1 peso coin they found on the ground, the loose change everybody else walked past, they picked up and saved every single one until they scraped together something around 3,000 pesos. And instead of spending it, they used it as capital. They started buying scrap off the other scavengers. And the little setup grew into a multi million peso junk shop. Trucks, a warehouse, their own people, from coins off the street. May pera sa basura. We say, there's money in the trash. And they proved it with sipag, tiyaga, and the one thing nobody teaches the poor here: they saved instead of spent. So, yes, the door is there. Then why doesn't everyone walk through it? Two big reasons. One, we were never taught to own. We were raised to be employees and workers for the queen. Go to school, get the diploma, land a steady job with a steady paycheck. That's the dream we're handed. Nobody teaches the poor kid about capital or building a business or making money work for you. The few families and the smaller group of people who did know that, meaning the ones who grew up around trade, around running a shop and pass it down, we are talking about enterprising full or half Chinese and Muslim communities. They mostly kept climbing. They know how money works. Whereas for the rest of us, we were raised to serve, not to build. Two, and this one's crueler. Many of us were taught to be ashamed of the one door that's opened, selling on the street. Here, a twisted little voice in the poor person's head says that means you have nothing, that it's beneath you, that now everybody knows you're poor because you are trying to scrape by. And I know that shame from the inside. When I was in grade school, we couldn't afford my snack money, so my older sister handed me some candies to sell to my classmates. And the profit would become my allowance. And I tried until one classmate said out loud that my family had no money and that's why I had to sell. I never sold one piece after that. I was so small with embarrassment for the longest time that I'd hide in a corner at snack time so nobody would see that I had nothing. And I'd pretend I wasn't hungry. That's how early it gets planted. That's the same voice that stops a grown man from selling fish balls to feed his own kids or to get his life started. Okay, the school. This is the other door out. It is even narrower than you'd think. For the poor kid to actually finish, it usually takes one of two things: a benefactor, a well off auntie, an uncle, a padrino, a scholarship fronting the fees, or two, the family picks one. In a big family like mine, the parents and the kids sit down and choose the one child with the best shot, the smartest one, the one who's most likely going to make it, and everyone pulls what little they have behind that one kid. The unwritten agreement is that once that kid finishes college and is able to find a good job, it is now that kid's turn to send the rest of the siblings to school and help the parents. So when that one makes it, she owes them, not legally, in her bones. Matuto kang lumingon sa iyong pinanggalingan. Learn to look back to where you came from. Never forget the people who carried you up. And if you don't look back on those people, you will be called walang utang na loob. You're an ingrate, said with a purpose to shame you for it. They drilled that into our subconscious from the first grade in a class literally called Good Manners and Right Conduct. So the one who escaped the ladder is tied for life to the hands that boosted her up. Hold on to that because tomorrow that rope is the whole conversation. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend the freeloaders don't exist, the grown, healthy men or women who found a source of money and quietly stopped trying. That's real. I've called it out, and you do not have to fund that. We had that established yesterday. Recognize that behavior, hold that line. But standing at the bottom of a ladder someone saw the rungs of, so, no, this whole class of people is not lazy. They're conditioned by the system to feel like there's no way out once they get stuck. That's not laziness you're looking at, that's design. Act 2: Who built the ladder? This ladder didn't grow by accident, gentlemen. It was built on purpose by the Spanish. They had over 300 years to pour the concrete in. So let me show you the thing they built. At the very top, the Spaniards born in Spain. Below them, the Spaniards born here. Then the mixed families, the mestizos. Then the thin layer of social chiefs the Spanish handpicked to help them rule. And at the very bottom, holding the whole weight of the pyramid, the Indio, the native, the brown Filipino. Look at that top and that bottom. White at the top, brown at the bottom. Your skin was your rank. That wasn't an insult whispered on the street. That was your legal category stamped on paper. And here's how they enforced it: it was a tax system. The Indio at the bottom paid the base tax, and the whites at the top, they paid nothing. So your worth in this country was decided the day you were born by the color you were born, and it was collected by the taxman every single year of your life. Now, why can't the family just get educated out of it? Remember Act 1? Here's your answer. They locked the schools on purpose. Higher education went to the Spanish and the richest mixed families, and almost nobody else got near it. And that wasn't laziness on anybody's part. That was strategy because an educated Indio is a dangerous Indio. So they sawed the bottom rungs off the ladder deliberately 400 years ago, and nobody ever fully put them back. That's not history, gentlemen. That's the machine still running right now because a rigged ladder has winners, and the winners at the top have never once had a reason to fix it. Now, two hard pieces, and I need you to hear them as history, not as accusation. One, the skin. For 300 years, fair skin wasn't a beauty trend. It was a legal class marker. White meant free. White meant you're taxless, meant you're on top. So when you see whitening creams in every store here, when you hear the aunties fuss over a fair baby and sigh, sayang, over a dark one, that is not vanity and it is not shallow. That is a 300-year-old wound that a whole country was taught to see as beauty. They didn't invent it, it was done to them. So, two, and this one explains so much. Under that system, a woman's class changed when she married. If she married up, she rose. If she married a man at the bottom, she dropped to his rank and paid his tax, written into the law. So, this idea some of you carry that a woman marrying up is some modern scheme. No, for the Philippines, it is 400 years old, and for the most of that time, it was the only ladder a woman was legally allowed to climb. So when you meet that instinct today, you're not meeting a gold digger. You're meeting the last surviving move in a game she never designed. And one more thing before we leave the cast. Those local chiefs that Spanish put on top, their families, a lot of them are still on top today. The pyramid I showed you in day 13, the tiny rich tip, the enormous poor base, that pyramid isn't new. It's colonial. Same families, same shape, 4 centuries later. So that's the ladder, and that's who built it. But here's the thing a rigged ladder does it doesn't just make people poor, it grows a whole culture on top of itself, a culture of asking and giving and shame. And a lot of you are absolutely convinced that culture is just a polite word for a scam. So, tomorrow, part two, where the entitlement really comes from. Whether the man in my comments is right, that is all just manipulation. And the one honest question about your own last decade or so that I want you to sit with. But before you go, tell me below, Filipinas, when did you first realize the ladder was rigged? I want to read those. For now, come walk with me. It's actually raining a little bit, but yeah, I'll still go do it. All right, guys, till tomorrow for part two. Bye.